When I was a baby actor, very young, 26 I think I was, or 25, I was approached by another actor with whom I was working called Richard Quick, and he said that he'd discovered this wonderful writer called Juvenal. Of course, I'd heard of Juvenal, the famous Roman satirist who lived at the beginning of the first century of the Common Era, but I'd never read him. I knew the famous quotes and sayings of Juvenal, like a healthy mind and a healthy body, who will look after the guards themselves, and I knew in general that he was a satirist. So Richard said, look, I think there's a real show in this, a stand-up comedy show. I said, are you mad? And he said, yeah, it's wonderful stuff. It's so funny, it's savage, it's terribly harsh, and it's very, very like the world that we live in today. And he presented me with a script that he'd made of about 65 minutes of stuff from the satires of Juvenal, and I said, this is absolutely brilliant. It's as if it had been written by some absolutely top-notch satirist yesterday. And this was in 1976, and it was pretty shocking. Some of what Juvenal said, he attacks everybody. He attacks immigrants, he attacks women, he attacks gays, he attacks the upper classes, he attacks the lower classes. It's very democratic. He attacks everybody, and he's very, very, very funny. And so Richard had adapted the quite long 16 satires of Juvenal into a show, which he called Juvenalia. And I read it, as I say, and I said, this is just wonderful, wonderful stuff. And I took it to the Bush Theatre then in London, and I said, you know, I'd really love to do this. And they said, great, let's do it. Because that's how things used to be in the Fringe in those days. And we put it on about 4 weeks after I'd taken it to them. And we had 2 weeks to rehearse it. We had no budget of any kind at all. We put a potted plant on the stage and a couple of footlights and so on. And I put on the dinner jacket and a pair of spectacles and had a cigarette dangling from my mouth, and we did it. And it was a huge and amazing smash hit. With the top newspapers, the Times and the Telegraph and the Financial Times all came down, and they all said, this is astonishing stuff. So we did it all those years ago. It's nearly 40 years ago. And just the other day, I was asked to write an introduction to the 16 satires of Juvenal, which is being reissued in the same fabulous translation by this great, great scholar called Peter Green, who's now 90 and still teaching classics at the University of Iowa. And I said I'd be delighted to, and I reread them, and in so rereading them, I got a great nostalgia for the old show. And I looked it up, and I thought, it's masterly. It's absolutely brilliant. And so I took it to William Burdett Coutts at the Assembly in Edinburgh and at the Riverside Studios, and I said, William, we have to do this. It's incredibly now. It's every disaffected, middle-class white male in the world just sounding off against everything that gets up his nose. And surprisingly and astonishingly, by the end of the show, you actually like this man and you care for him. Though he's a kind of upper-class Alf Garnett in his way, in fact, at heart, there's this tremendous romanticism, and that's all in the 16 satires. But Richard Quick unerringly found them, and that's the kind of journey that we go with the show. The main thing is, it's savage, it's filthy, it's politically incorrect in the extreme, and it's absolutely brilliantly, brilliantly funny. And I can't ever remember enjoying a show more in my life.